Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul.
Good to hear your voice, Mike. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay tonight, Pastor Paul.
You
Busy,
know,
but good.
I know you're busy, and I'm glad to be back home in Florida. I'm sorry that I only could jump in last week at the end, but Heidi can hold down the fort. She knows what she's doing. She's all over it.
Yes, you can.
So, Mike,
Yes, you can.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
here we go. The FBI, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, testified in front of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs and basically raised the red alert for America. Basically said, we got a problem. We got sleeper cells, we got jihadis, we got maybe the Chinese. I don't know who all we got here. Mike, could you help us understand why would he bring this to a level of red alert?
Well, first of all, everybody should remember some of the predictions that these experts on television had concerning this Gaza-Israeli conflict, right? They all said nothing, no major thing is going to happen. So all of them were wrong. Because they were wrong.
Yeah.
They had gotten into a mode of trusting their own analyses. That's always a mistake. When that happened, they became nervous about everything else they've been made aware of, right?
Yep.
1990, for example, 1992, right after the Gulf War, right after troops got home, there were a few missions within the USA that were taking place. Nobody knew how to handle it. These were times back in 1992 when people like Osama bin Laden were being trained by our personnel. When that special camp in Virginia, who qualifies some of the best CIA operatives, also qualified quite a few commanders that eventually went rogue in the Middle East. And they are still there to this day. So we have thousands of trained command type individuals. Now, we're not just talking about somebody who, they picked up, trained, and let loose again. No, we're talking about people who went through Annapolis, people who went through all of your armed services, officers, training courses, and schools. So they are more than highly qualified. And then they went to, for example, some of them went to 7-7 Special Forces Group. Some of them were connected to Delta operators. They received training from the SEALs, so on and so forth. And they go back to the Middle East, right?
Yep.
Well, these same people turn against America, obviously, and they have been raising their banner ever since 1994 right here in America, and the numbers have been building. Of course, back then, nobody really knew what to do about that. Everybody had a disdain for war following the Gulf War.
Yep.
And then, of course, it happened again, and a higher disdain happened. So nobody wanted to discuss that. And after 9/11, due to that debacle, they left that subject alone. The problem is we still have some pretty high numbers of folks over here we don't have accountability of. And we certainly do not know how many passed on training to the other operatives within
When you say
America.
pretty high numbers, Mike, I mean, what are you talking about here?
We're talking probably millions.
Wait, time. Well, I mean, millions? Like
millions.
A couple million?
I want you to look at the people protesting. What do you see? College students.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're protesting. We're not talking about college students that are immigrants. We're talking about American college students.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So if they have a sentiment for, and this sentiment against Israel, doesn't matter what happens, these people pop up, right? They are the same people who like conservation of the planet also conserve humanity when it's discussed on social media. And so social media is one of the major drivers of how people will respond and react. In fact, there are a lot of people who do not know how to react until they read it on social media. And of course, it could be an outright lie, but it's too late. Once they accept something on social media, to them it's truth, even when it's a lie. And there's no way you can put out that fire. So you have the greater half of American young people who have no loyalty to the USA, where they would actually side with Israel and her allies, right? They
Right.
would side, where they would side with those that they feel that sympathetic tug towards, right? Because these college students, they feel disenfranchised.
How
They
can you?
do.
Well,
We're
how can?
talking about,
Well, how can they feel
well,
disenfranchised when they live in the greatest country of the world? Half of them don't even pay for their education. I mean,
because they're
what? What?
following.
Okay.
Well, we know they look at the White House, right? In the White House, you have people portraying themselves as disadvantaged minorities, right? Or disadvantaged. That is not about color, but
No.
that word minority is not about
No,
color.
I know. You're
It's
right.
about affiliation. And so you have people portraying themselves this way. These young people believe it. They take on that banner and begin to fight for it. So it lets you know the psyche of these young people. Number one, they're aggravated. They have to fight for something. Right? If they were not fighting for nature, the crime rate would probably triple. Um, a lot of them, they have their own world they want to establish. Their parents did not raise them. They were raised by video games and by some of the themes in those video games. So they love alternative media. So they're not looking for facts. They're looking for a good story. They're looking for something they can indulge in. And it just so happens any story of controversy that pops up, they pick the disenfranchised side. They start to protest it or speak up about it, so on and so forth. So you have a lot of Americans that are not so loyal. Plus, if you do certain things for terrorist organizations, they can pay you $10 million. They can give you, money here and there. Now, in the culture we live in, where people don't want to work, it's pretty easy to pick up, $10 million to carry a message to a college or to wear a jacket to protest something, to stand for something, right?
Right.
They'll do it every single time. And this has grown. It's harmless at first, and people really thought it was going to fade away. A major crisis came in 1994 when all this stuff happened and the borders of countries were taken down, and these young people, for the first time, could compare their lives to somebody else's life, filling them with emotions they're ill equipped to handle. And then they take sides, not based on loyalty of nation or dedication to nation, but who they have the most sympathy towards and whose story is most believable. Well, you have Hamas out there on every network in the Middle East, and they're giving their story, creating sympathetic causes behind them. They said they didn't kill anybody. They didn't want to kill anybody. They didn't want to do this, and people believe them. Um,
What? I mean, they
yep,
slaughtered them.
people are believing Hamas, and they are not believing anybody else. They're believing Hamas. The whole world is starting to pick this up. They're believing Hamas. As a Christian, um, sometimes we can live in a bubble, I
Yeah.
guess you could say.
Yeah, that's true.
And in that bubble, we just don't see some of the brutality and some of the very real threats that are out there. But those real threats are out there. You have nations believing Hamas, sympathetic towards Hamas, funding Hamas, right?
Yeah.
And this is the problem. This is one of the major problems in Gaza, because you're always going to hear people who they're going to present the problem in a billion different ways. Not one soul comes with a solution, right? This Gaza problem will not be over, number one, because you don't know who's Hamas and who's not.
Right. You
You
don't.
can't do that. So the only way to do that is to take all those people, fair or unfair. By the way, this is not going to work, fair or unfair, and begin to vet them family by family, piece by piece, right? To actually start to find Hamas. But that looks just like what they did to the Jews in World War, too. So that's not going to happen. So what we have here is we have a situation that will not end because you don't know who's who. And America, we really don't know who's who. There is intel right now that these organizations, they have a specific name they use when they're in America, and they are positioned everywhere to kill us, not just to hurt us, but to kill us, right? Here in America.
Unbelievable.
They
Unbelievable.
can disrupt major things. And I do, winter's coming, and they're going to take full advantage of the winter time to attempt to disable us. That threat is very high. Now, these folks in these agencies are taking that seriously because all of them were wrong about Israel,
Yeah,
save,
they are.
a few outspoken individuals. Um, but everybody else was wrong, and they're too prideful to admit that they were wrong, right?
Yep.
So you better believe we're going to go through some hurtful
All right. All
situations.
right. Now, Mike, now in lieu of all this information, there's been rumors again, you know how rumors get started, but sometimes rumors get started because there's info slipping out that there could potentially be a consideration for for the United States to start a military draft because of the lack of volunteers joining the military due to this woke agenda. Now all of a sudden we find ourselves in great potential. Is that something you think could actually take place?
Well, a long time ago, we needed manpower, right?
Yep.
That's not the case today.
Okay.
We don't need, it's not manpower we're looking for. Plus, we have, we have quite a few troops deployed all over the place. No matter how many troops we get, we're still going to deal with the same issues inside the services. So as far as the draft is concerned, no, I would say no. I think I know where that stems from. But no, I can't agree with that because
Okay. That's good
the
to know.
nature the nature of what we're doing has changed. But it still does not, because if something happened in this country, right? For example, if something happened here and something happened overseas and our troops started dying like flies, right? Then I can tell you right now, if we had the death of 400,000 or 500,000 troops in less than a month, we will see a draft. But only if people refuse to continue to volunteer. I strongly believe people are hungry, some for good, some not for good, but they have a lot of rage built up from different happenings. And most of the time, this rage is going to be they're going to focus this rage back into patriotism, and then there's a lot of people that will volunteer to risk their lives to go overseas for the military. So I don't see where a draft will be necessary. There's still a lot of people who would do a lot of good in this country, and but before that ever happens, we're going to have the world engulfed, so to speak, and America is going to be tied up with its own issues. One of the major factors right now is they want America. They need to have these Middle Eastern terrorists. They need to have America crippled. The number one talk right now is to cripple America. Cripple America. That's what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
well, you've said it many times. And how else could the Jerusalem be 42 months underfoot of the Gentiles unless you take out the Americans?
That's right. That's right.
So all this hatred toward America. I mean, we're the great Satan as far as the radical jihadists are concerned. So, I mean, I can see how that works. All right, you also said something to Heidi last week. You said, "Oh, by the way, Heidi, the war under the water has already begun, under the sea."
Oh yes.
And she
Yeah.
didn't follow up with that. She just heard you and said, "Whoa," and then, but I thought maybe we should ask you that question. What do you mean, Mike? It has already begun.
Well, war in the oceans is, let's just say, it's in continuation mode. Plus, new actors have done new things. For example, something people may not know about: Hamas has been very active in the oceans. You do know they have drone submarines, right? Hamas.
No. What? No. Are you
They
serious,
manufacture
Mike?
them. Yeah.
You're
Yes.
serious.
Yes, and they use them. They're using them. So, and Israel, of course, is having to combat this underneath the waters. and is becoming pretty sophisticated. Lots of some hair-raising moments. But yeah, it's happening under the water. So it's already begun there. Ukraine, same thing. Russia's doing the same thing. China, same thing, right? Because it's in the oceans, and nobody can report on that in the oceans. You're not going to hear a lot about that. But just go look up some of the torpedoes and some of the drones that Hamas, not Hezbollah, not
No,
anybody else,
no,
but
Hamas
Hamas is manufacturing, and what they
is
have actually used.
now. I understand that Hezbollah has a very strong military capability in southern Lebanon, but it sounds like to me that Hamas is actually more. I'm not going to say sophisticated, but they seem to be like the leaders of this. It's all backed by Iran, but are they like the tip of the spear here now?
Well, right now, Hamas, they have 7 manufacturing facilities underground right there in Gaza. Uh, they produce missiles. Now, we're not talking about the small rockets they've been launching. We're talking about missiles. They manufacture their own missiles, right? They manufacture this. They manufacture their own drones, their own technology, drone flight systems, all sorts of things. And so we're not, the battlefield it's not what it used to be. It used to be infantry based, right? Where a person would go and hunt another person down, this, that, and the other. But now it's not infantry anymore. We're talking about technology. Um, isolated Hamas has developed by themselves, right? Because they have smart college kids doing business with Hamas. We have folks who you don't know where they went to school. In certain cases, they found that people who graduated from MIT worked for Hamas. So you don't, and they have shell companies. They have hundreds of shell companies. Hamas is a bigger organization. They're not what they used to be. They're a much bigger organization than what most
Okay.
people know.
Then they're being heavily funded. Who in the world besides Iran? This sounds like more than Iran who's funding these guys. Am I
Well,
right?
they also by way of the internet, right? Just like a person can go on the internet, create a couple pages, and have a huge income, they have done the same thing. Okay, so that's where the difference is.
I
You
see.
no
I
longer have
see.
to go through an oil company to get millions. You can do that electronically, right? You can campaign electronically and get, thousands of dollars. So they know how to do that
Yep.
by doing the little dirty things they do. But and half these ripoffs and cons and everything, they have very sophisticated ways that they do that. So they're getting all that money. They're raising a lot of money themselves, somewhat autonomously, which is why Iran has been, yes, they've been funding activities with Hamas, but Hamas has been providing a lot of money to Hezbollah. But you never thought that day would come.
No, I didn't.
So Hamas, that's why Israel is responding the way they are, because they do understand this. But how do you communicate that to a world who thinks you're unfairly toppling people? Because on the news, you don't hear that word Hamas. You hear refugees, you hear, hostages and this, that, and the other. You don't hear that word Hamas too much. You don't
No.
hear people talking about their infrastructure, about how they embedded themselves among the people. You don't, and the Ukraine's the same thing. You have folks in the Ukraine who they're doing military operations right there where people sleep in children's schools. You can't do that. You can't do that. So it's dirt all the way around. The problem is it's so sticky these days that you have a lot of people who are becoming sympathetic based on what's being presented to them. And again, in this day and age, people have beautiful presentations, but they have zero solutions.
Right.
And so without solutions, we're going to have a continuation and a buildup. And in my opinion, what people are seeing in Gaza is the birth of the darkest time in human history. Perhaps all those children over there that are undergoing this, they will never forgive anybody. They're not going to forgive. They're not going to forget. This is going to this is going to really alter everything in the Middle East, and people are seeing the
When you
beginnings
say
of
those
that.
children
Right?
in Gaza, you're talking about the ones that are suffering because of the
Yeah.
war that
Yes.
Hamas has brought
Yes.
on. Hamas brought
Hamas
this
is. That's
on.
right. and they are the interpreters. See, those kids can't hear. They can't
Yeah.
hear Americans. They can't hear Europeans. They can't hear Israel. They can't hear
No.
Jordan. They can't hear anybody. They hear Hamas. And Hamas is in their interpretation of what's happening is they have gained sympathy from the entire Muslim world. They have gained sympathy from China. They gained sympathy from just about everybody, right? Even certain people in our governing house, they
Yeah.
gained sympathy from them, right?
Yep.
Which I can't, I am compromised on one thing about the White House, so I can't even talk about that subject. But yes, they've gained sympathy from quite a few people in the world. So this is
You
very different
you
situation here.
can't talk about the White House because of your position, but you know, it's become a joke. I mean, and I'm not just saying because of all this stumbling and bumbling and fumbling. I'm talking about the agendas that we've witnessed with it, whether it be we're embedded, we're in bed with the Chinese, we're in bed with so many.
It's become a house of lies.
Iran.
It's a house of lies.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay, now let me ask you this: the hostages. There's about 200, and I don't know. The number changes every day, but let's say there's 230. Um, we've gotten one. The Israelis were able to get one female soldier out of there. What? There's no way. I mean, look, they can't just try to tippy toe through this tulips to get them. I mean, so they're going to keep this aggression. I call it crush and creep. Crush and creep. I don't know what else to call it. That's what it seems like they're doing. What's the plan that you think that where Israel is right now in this? Are we months away from this thing ending? Oh,
Fastball, you're working. They're fighting against people who have no compassion for anybody else's agenda, who will not bend. They will not waver. They will, by way of speech, accommodate anything, but they'll do something else. These people are cruel. Many of the commanders are cruel, right? So they don't care about human life. They care about, you know, what they want to accomplish. Those people who are over there, there's no way Hamas is going to give up everybody because they lose their leverage. They lose it. Who's going to lose their leverage in this? If every hostage were gone from Gaza, right? They would have zero leverage.
right.
They know for a fact that Israel would not hold back,
Yeah, they know.
right? They would not hold back. So they're not going to give up
No.
everybody. And chances are that everybody is not even alive right now. You have families out there hoping that their loved ones are still alive. And certain people have found out that the people that they thought were still alive are not alive, right?
Yeah.
Egypt is caught in a very bad situation. They don't want Hamas infiltrating them, and they don't want anybody else for that matter. So their trickle way of inspecting and letting people through, that's going to be too slow. So it's just highly unfortunate. And again, who do you trust? Because you have women, you have most of the people over there in Gaza, by the way, are below a specific age. As far as people that are over the age of, I believe it's 30, is you don't have that many. Most of the people there are under the age of 30, right? So it's a
Right.
lot of young people there. But it's a lot of trickery happening also, right? Unfortunately, it's one of those things that you can only have the truth after everything is said and done. You're not going to have the truth now from certain elements of that, right? Even I called what was a 6 um, fake moments on TV, right?
Okay.
Because I informed some folks you need to pull that off the television because they're acting, right? And of course, when they looked at that a second time, they could see it. The children were being prompted to cry. They weren't crying before they were laughing and playing. They were being prompted to cry. This is in Gaza. So it's very difficult to know the truth. Are there people suffering? You better believe it. Are there people suffering in Israel? Yes, because they're still being hit. Things are still getting through, right?
Yeah, the
People are
rockets. I
still
mean,
dying. People
today,
are still dying.
this evening, I just saw before I came on here. Oh, I don't know, 3 hours ago or so, rockets coming out of Hezbollah, smashing into a town. 8 or 10 cars are ablaze. One of the buildings are ablaze. I mean, this doesn't end. I mean, Hezbollah hasn't even started yet, have they, Mike? They haven't even. They're not even They're just playing.
No, not really. They've hit a couple U.S. bases.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
they're starting a stage for planning, dealing with the continent of the USA, which is ongoing because there are quite a few groups doing that. So hopefully people are vigilant in that regard. But yeah, they haven't started yet. But this whole thing is just beginning.
it is.
Unfortunately, it's just beginning. Even if they had some sort of an agreed ceasefire, right? Some of the people over there are so militant, evil and
You're
militant,
right.
and agenda based that they're going to defy, uh,
So,
any recommendations given from their commanders.
okay, Mike, I'm going to get to. We want to get to Planet X. There's been people asking some updates, but before we do, I want to ask about Ukraine for a minute because everything's focused now in the Middle East because it is so intense and so horrific, and it involves one of our most important allies. So, but what is Putin doing now? And I'm hearing that Ukraine is basically they're never going to take the eastern Ukraine back. They're never going to get Crimea back. So what's the game? What's the end game here?
That's a that's actually the Ukraine is actually a NATO doorway, right? A
Yeah,
NATO doorway. Putin is not going to let that go because he wants that land back, number one. But if, let's say, for example, the Ukraine was reestablished, they would put launchers and an early warning system right there in that area. Putin is not going to have that. That messes up his entire early warning system for his net coverage of that entire province. Plus, there is an underground, uh, there are underground things there, right, that are very valuable. Um, and people know about that. So that belongs to Russia inherently, and they're not going to give it up. They're not going to give that. Had it remained undiscovered, fine, but that wasn't the case. So they're not going to give that up.
no, they're not going to give it back. I mean, the eastern Ukraine or Crimea.
No,
But are
no,
they
they're not.
willing to end this war, leaving Ukraine as a sovereign nation, what they have left, or do you think they just don't care? They stay.
Once Putin makes a declaration, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and he's that declaration is there. That's a
Well, his
declaration. So
declaration is to take it all.
yeah,
Period.
well, that's his declaration. He can't afford for NATO to occupy that territory. In fact, we were there. NATO was there, right? When the war started, there were certain parts of NATO that had to evacuate, right? He's not going to let them back in that door again. If he does that, Russia will be under the total control of the West. He's not going to allow that to happen. He's just not
No.
going to do it. And so right now, it's very important for him to continue doing what he's doing, right? They're going to back him. Everybody's going to back him. Eventually, the Ukraine's going to turn into something else, and it's going to draw many people into a conflict they don't want. Well, that's happening already, but that's just one of those unfortunate things. But he's going to continue. And Zelensky is, I'll say it again. You never know who somebody is until everything is said. Now, I know that there's a lot of popular statements and interpretations based on the internet. These guys had identities prior to this war that were nothing like what they are now, right? A
Right.
lot of those guys are actors. They're very good
Right.
actors. They
Right.
can put on the face you want. But I need to remind everybody uh, that, first of all, Zelensky was prompted by President Joe Biden, and he went along with everything President Joe Biden said
Yep.
and everything President Joe Biden directed. So what does that tell you? He's doing anything he can, right, to stay in that position of power with those people. The people that are there, right? The civilization does not know all of those people. Yes, you're going to have innocent people among them, but Pastor, probably a lot of people here wouldn't like those people, the
No.
people that are there, truth be told. So the face of evil often hides behind these sympathetic causes, and there's no, again, there's no solution to what's happening over there. I'll say this, that people are going to find there's no solution to anything happening except a spiritual solution. Because how do you get, just like these twisted individuals here in America and abroad, right? How do you get them out of power? You don't. because Satan does the same thing every single time. He'll take something and he'll look at it, looks very good, like our republic. It gets built up. It's beautiful, right? It's working. Everybody starts to prosper from it. And what does he do? He usurps it.
Yeah.
He gets right into it at its height, takes it over. Well, if they don't have protection, spiritual protection, right? There is no solution to anything. It's always going to end the exact same way. And if you look at every single failed anything in the world, it's always happened the same way. It's built up, it gets famous, it reaches just about everybody, it does good work, and then Satan usurps it every single time. Every single time. And in every single time when it gets to its height, it has forgotten about the creator. How can the same thing continue to happen, right? And Christians were put here on this earth to keep things like that. But Christians are the only defense. These people are not going to, they don't have a defense because they're not going to be loyal to Christ and keep their power. They can't do that.
No.
Christians can. And these systems of men, they're going to remain in the earth, but every single last one of them is going to be usurped by evil because they have no protection against evil itself, right? So
Right.
not that anything, because it's not a hopeless situation. It is up to the believers. It's up to those who believe. Even, you know what, Hollywood's going to come out with some messages after they do some confessions about Satan himself. That's going to wake a lot of people up. It
Whoa.
really will. That's going to wake some
Hollywood's
people
going to
up.
give some confessions about the devil?
Oh, yeah. Because they have no protection from that. They have no protection. And it's not some, we're not talking about mythical things either. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're not talking about mythical things. When somebody can stand there, right, one night being protected under guard and everything else and come out with over 1,000 cuts and scratches on them, an hour later after just going to the bathroom with nothing in it, well, something's wrong there, right? Something's
Right.
very wrong.
Whoa.
When
Whoa.
these people are highly deceived, and so there are a lot of people out there, they think they cannot escape, and they're held, I guess you could say, in that position by massive fear, right? Well, we know with Christ that's not the truth, but
Right.
this evil is just now intensifying.
Right. Mike, let's take a look at, let's move subjects a little bit here just because I promised people I ask certain questions. And Planet X is still on people's mind. And, look, we just had an asteroid tonight that missed us by 0.1 lunar distance. It was like less than 19,000 miles, which is
It's got debris. It has debris.
what has so,
To my understanding, there's debris behind this. There's some debris flying with this
oh,
object.
with this one that's whizzing by tonight.
Yeah, we could have some. I'd say, based on that arc, I'd say a little after it passes, we could have some
We could get hit with
things
something
reach
small.
our atmosphere. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have some. Yeah,
So anyway, you've said many times that this meteor storm, a couple clouds of
it's
storm.
coming.
Yeah, we're
It's
getting
coming.
closer all the time.
It's coming.
Planet X, of course, that's the mystical, unforeseen planet that's apparently the twin to our Earth or to Jupiter, and it's a binary system, or to our sun, to our sun, and it's creating the balance of our universe or our solar system anyway. Is it getting? Is there any update on it? I mean, as far as it's affecting the sun or what's going on with the Earth?
Pastor, it's change. Well, everybody knows the weather's not right,
Right,
right?
right.
So, what do people watch next? Keep your eyes on the ocean. Of
Okay.
course, the weather's going to be a consistent thing, but the animals are about to do what they've never done before. The animals will
What?
start to. They're gonna start, blowing their own trumpet. When they start, they're not going to show up in the places where they have been. They're going to start altering position big time, right? Don't be shocked if entire species during migration die. Don't be shocked about that.
Whoa!
So we've had like 100,000 birds here, 50,000 birds here, this and the other. But imagine a whole lot more than that at one time die. Imagine waking up and in an entire town, all you see are dead butterflies. Things of that nature will take place. Imagine the absence of birds for all of a country, a whole country missing birds. How would you like that? So we're going to go through things like that.
Is
Not
it
only that, but sea life. Sea life will do the exact same thing.
okay? Is it because of our binary? I mean, is it because our magnetosphere is changing? Are we? It's because there's a
The
pole
magnetic
shift.
influences, the
Okay.
magnetic influences of the entire Earth and every system connected to the magnetic system of this Earth is going to alter. It's going to change, and that will continue to change as this secondary body, this secondary sun comes in. Now, but like Planet X would be something orbiting one of these second suns, right?
Okay.
Or
Yep.
the second
I
sun.
got you.
But the second sun itself, the forces involved are going to really change quite a few things in our entire solar system. Um, for example, one day people will look up and the stars will be out of position. They're going to be in position one day, and the next day they're not going to be in position, and they're not going back to a position. There's going to come a time when people think that we have been, lunged out of our orbit, right? Things will
Well,
become very
is it because we
brutal.
we shifted on our axis? What would cause the constellations to change? The star,
An entire destabilization of our orbit. If any other body ever comes close to our sun, right, there's no way the planets are going to keep their orbit. It's just
right?
not going to happen. And so if our Earth starts to lose its orbit, right, we're not going to notice too much initially. The first thing we're going to see is that the sky is going to be out of balance, out of alignment,
Yeah.
right? You may sit up there one night watching the stars and see stars going in circles in certain locations. They'll look like they're just going in a circle. In another location, they may make a zigzag line or
But
something
it's
like that.
really us moving, right? I mean,
That's when people are going to find out that they're going to find out the true nature of what everything is. That they'll find out is it's not going to be nice, but they'll find out. Also, animals uh, who have magnetite in their brains and certain spiders, they have certain elements in their body. Scorpions also, certain elements in their carapace, in their bodies that will begin to change with the change in forces in the earth. A lot of people are going to they're going to have their bouts with depression. Anytime a magnetic field is altered, especially the Earth's magnetic field, if it is altered, depression is going to be one of the first things we have to contend with. It will be induced by an alteration in the magnetic fields. We're also going to see large and massive fluctuations of our magnetic field. So they'll start reporting that, right? People will start, that'll be so common. Watch it. I'm telling you that it's going to be common for people to read the news and say, oh, magnetic field failed again over this area, over this area. It's going to be quite common.
so when you look at the Bible, when you look at Isaiah 24, it talks about this pole shift. It talks about the earth flipping upside down. The inhabitants have to be repositioned, or they got to transfer to different locations. Then we look in, okay, that's Isaiah 24. Then we can read about, the sun will be darkened and the moon will turn to blood over in Joel or in Amos at the noonday.
Mm.
Then we can go to the New Testament, and Jesus tells us there'll be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, distress of nations. So basically, is it possible that whatever's going on in the spiritual world is manifested in the physical? I mean, is it kind of like hand in hand? Whatever the
Well,
worse it
yeah.
gets here, the worse it gets up there. I mean, the planets and the stars and
Well,
the
yeah, the heavens one, there's when like that scripture when it says the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
shaken. You're right.
Well, if it's just saying that in those scriptures, that means prior to that time, the powers of heaven were not shaken. And last time I read that word powers, it was talking about an entity or force behind something to keep things in order. So if that the one who's holding it in order is let loose, then the powers of heaven will be shaken, which means that the powers of heaven will be
Oh,
in disarray. In
yeah,
disarray. They won't be
chaos.
governed anymore, right? Even in the book of Enoch, it says that the angels will abandon their posts,
Yep.
right? They're going to abandon their posts. So, and it was explaining how they hold physics to be physics, right? They're the ones that cause certain forces to act the way they do. What they're finding out in quantum physics right now is that there's some type of intelligent force behind every force. That's what they're finding out because their new experiments seem to be They're altering too much, put it that way, right? Which means something is keeping everything in check, and we
Right.
don't have a concept of. Can you imagine something keeping every single electron, proton, and everything else in check?
That's
That's far away from the physics we understand. But
yeah.
through CERN, they have found this out, utilizing those properties and calculations. They have made great strides in their search for this new energy source, right? They've actually pulled energy from the other side, a lot of it, right? So
Yeah, I've heard that.
they succeeded because of that principle, because something is governing every single force all the time. Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna have a is everything in the heavens dictates everything down here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
In fact,
So
and I believe everything in creation itself, everything in the heavens was made to sustain what it sustains. Everything is highly
a
purposed.
perfect balance. So God put together a
Everything is
perfect
highly
balance,
purposed. Yes, sir.
and the only
That's
thing
right.
that's messed it up is sin, mankind's disobedience,
Us.
a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. Us. There's no doubt about
Yeah, we put our fingers in it, and it
that.
just goes up and just messes up.
Oh man, praise God. All right, so now, okay, let's look at this situation also, and that is we haven't talked about China tonight, but China. Okay, we talked about Russia. We know what Russia's doing with Ukraine, and they're going to win this war of attrition. And what it means is the United States is going to run out of money, and they're going to quit sending cash to Ukraine. Ukraine's going to have to fold up because now we got another fight going on, Israel, and this is huge. And we're almost out of ammunition, and we're having to produce so many ammunition now. The plants are all cranking. But what if China decides to jump into Taiwan? Are we ready for this?
No, no, we're not.
Would we just succumb? Would just Taiwan? Is
Uh,
Taiwan gone? Is it already a given? Can you just count it? Just mark it down?
well, China wants to govern things just like we did, right? They do. They want to govern territories like we do because that's what we do. We manage territories. Um, if China takes that role, my, that's a whole different world,
They want to take
a
over
whole
the
different
world, don't they?
culture.
Don't they want to run this
Yes, they
whole?
do. Just like we have.
Yeah.
Just like we have. And of course, the internal, I'm telling you, there are people within our government who want the USA gone. And they are
Yeah.
not the people, they are not the folks you think they are.
I mean, think about
Anyway,
this. We got
this
people sitting in Congress, the squad, and there's about 16 of them now in Congress.
asterisk purpose, they're not, these people are dangerous.
Yeah.
And don't think for a moment they just happened to have gotten elected. They just happened to have
No.
gotten selected. This is purposed. They knew exactly who those people were. They want these people to tear down this country, and that's precisely what. For example, we don't have a proper command structure, military forces, right?
No.
And I'm telling you right now, that's not corrected within 2 or 3 days. We're going to start paying a heavy. I said this Monday. It's so funny. I did kind of rant and rave about that just a little bit, but on Monday I said that, and so now they're setting up hearings, but I don't believe they're going to make it. We have some crises happening right now. This Middle Eastern problem
Yep.
is not a good problem
No.
because we've already detected there's some things that have happened they cannot bring forward. These, if you think the Israel situation is bad, it is nothing compared to what they tried to do. But we don't have a proper command structure, and that's going to cause confusion, delayed. If orders are delayed more than a minute these days, it's a catastrophe. And when you don't have proper command personnel in place, orders get delayed. Nobody can approve something fast enough, and that's the difference between life and death for millions of people. Right? That really is. So we're going to face more and more
Are you saying
situations
we have
like
a
that.
breakdown in a command structure?
Yes, we do. We do.
I mean,
There are
that's
holes,
from the chief.
gaps.
Are you saying from all the way from the chief, the commander in chief, all the way down? We got holes.
Well, the commander in chief is the White House command structure is good, but when it hits the military services, it's disrupted.
Well, what's
If we don't
good?
get that fixed in a couple days, if we do not get that fixed in a couple days,
Is it
we're
because
gonna
of
have problems.
Tuberville and
I don't. His name is. Can't even say his name.
yeah,
But
because he's holding
that
back.
guy,
Yeah.
that guy is going to kill a lot of people.
Yep. What is his problem, Mike? That he wants to hold up all these promotions of these officers. We can't hold people back from positions. This is part of the breakdown of the chain, isn't it?
That is absolutely disgusting. Is what that is. The backbone of this country is based off the cohesion of our military, and so to disrupt that, right?
Yeah.
Then you have folks who it's just like taking some well behaved citizens and putting them inside of a supermax prison and unlocking all the doors on the prison gates, right? There's no order after you do that. So then not having a commander is actually exposing everybody to chaos because 1 minute, a delay in an order for 1 minute as it goes down or up the chain of command, fastball can cause millions and millions of lives. It can cost lives. It's already messed up cohesion. It's caused confusion as far as who can do what, when and where, right? Who's appointed to what. Soldiers need to have confidence in their command structure, right? Without
Yeah.
question. And how can you have confidence in something when you don't even know who's appointed? You can't even start to build that cohesion. And so you're going to breed competition among the lower commanders who will then begin to, do certain things for a position because they're looking to be promoted. Uh, that's not good. It's not a good situation because we can be taken full advantage of. Things have already happened where we were too slow because nobody knew who could make that decision
Yep.
fast enough.
Everybody's
There's
waiting on
already been
somebody to make
fallout,
the decisions. Too
and I'm
late.
telling you now, we have about 2 days, and if we don't have that solved, and this is why Congress is going to have they're talking on the floor about this. If we don't have that solved, then we're gonna see some major
Yeah,
major
I was watching
problems.
today. There were several U.S. Senators, and they were yelling at him. Basically, they were calling Tuberville out. I mean, look, Tuberville wants. I understand what he wants to do and what he wants to make sure that we get the right people in the right place. But we can't.
So he'll kill everybody to do it.
Yeah, you can't do. You can't throw the baby out with the
That makes
bathwater,
sense.
Tuberville. I mean, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, again, he should go back and coach football. I think he's out of his league. But
He is.
I mean, he means
He
well,
is.
but he's out of his league.
He is.
You know.
His assessment of the situation is based on athletes, not actual
I know.
soldiers. You
Yeah, this is
can't
a
do that.
different.
You
This
can't do
ain't a
that.
football game. We're talking about life or death
Yeah.
in a war, and we got global powers. Now, look, I know what he means, and I know he means well. And he's a good guy, but he doesn't understand the big picture how things work, and you can't shut down the chain of command system within a U.S. military for this many months and think it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay.
That's prideful. That's very prideful to assume that he's right and everybody else is wrong.
Yeah.
That's extremely prideful.
Yep.
He's even gone against his own
His own
advisements
advisors.
from his own people.
Yep.
He's not listening. He's not listening. And if he persists, it's going to cause a major. That's what I started talking about Monday when I kind
Yep.
of lost my composure. But yeah,
I think
that
they'll fix
issue
it.
and a few more
I think they're going to get this
are,
guy in a headlock somewhere in the back room and do some arm twisting, and they're going to get this guy under
well,
control at some point. They have to. Or he'll come up missing or something. But you know what I'm saying? They have to. I'm just saying. I know how Washington works. I just know. You
yeah,
can't stand in the way forever. Ask Vince Foster. You just
I
can't
tell
stand
you,
in the way forever.
it seems like there are elements within this country that want us to falter badly, right?
Yeah.
And these are crucial months. If we start making mistakes now, we only have well, time period has already begun, but if they can stall us on a few issues now from within government, we're going to pay the price, pure and simple. This has never happened before, right? This should not have gone on for this long. This is this has gone on for months, right? Not just it just didn't happen. This is going into month what, 6?
Yeah.
So this is just not good. And for this to have gone on that long, it also tells you that people are unsure what they can do. See, that's the other problem, Pastor. When you have people in power that are unsure of what they can and cannot do, because we live in a very, everybody wants to prosecute everybody. The stone steps are everywhere. So if
Okay,
anybody gets out of
whoa.
line, the stone steps are popping up. You know, they're ready to throw
Yeah,
people in jail.
they're dragging the people through court.
Yeah,
Look,
they are.
okay,
It's
let's talk.
never been this way.
Have we ever seen
Never
anything like
been
this?
this way.
Okay, so now we have the president's 3 children
Yes.
being have to stand and fight for $250 million worth of. Here's what I can't understand: Donnie, and then Eric, and then Ivanka, and then the president. And he's got 5 trials going at once, or 4 or 5, whatever it is. They're trying to take him off the ballot in Colorado. We've never seen anything like this, Mike. We've never been here
No.
before. What
No.
is going on?
No.
But I'm going to ask you. I mean, I'm a simple man. I'm a country. Look, I'm a country preacher from the cornfields of Indiana. My question is this: if you go to borrow money from the bank, and you go in there and you try to show them what assets you have and what you think they're valued at because you're trying to borrow, right? I mean, okay. But at the bank, it's the bank's responsibility to do what's called due diligence, to figure out about what your assets are worth, and they'll loan you not all the way as much as it's worth, maybe 70%, maybe, and then they'll loan you money if you're doing good, if your credit's good. And then after you borrowed this money, you pay it back. You don't owe it. You've paid it back. Why would you have to go to trial for that?
Well, that's not the bank. That's clearly,
It's
it's
not the
just
bank.
something else. Something else that, somebody else's. In these days, somebody can look at you and say, I think that person did so and so. Right? That's it. That's all you need. And then all of a sudden people start looking into it and, things happen. Listen, everybody knew that President Trump was a business guy,
Well, of
right? Now,
course.
there's not one business guy in America that knows all of his own accounting. Not
Exactly.
one guy.
No
And
way.
there's not one business guy that's going to sit there and devaluate himself in a
No.
conversation or something else. So America knew he was a businessman, right? The bad part is, the part that haunts me was, number one, I saw that coming long before he was ever president. I didn't know how that was going to happen. I didn't know, but it did anyway. And now they won't leave the guy alone. And they're
No.
dragging his children into it as a red line. You don't bring somebody's kids into anything to prosecute the father unless it's murder. That's just, egregious in my opinion. That really is. But
Okay.
it's sad. It's sad.
It
We're just at
is.
this time in history, and it's very unfortunate, very sad. It just so happens to happen at a time where Israel's having some major
Okay.
challenges.
Let's talk about that. Okay. So we're going into 2024. How long do you think the Israel uprooting, destroying of Hamas, and then what? How long do you see this lasting before it's over and Gaza's got to get restarted? Somebody's got to be in charge if Hamas is wiped out. How long does this take, and what does it look like at the end of it?
I don't want to say this, but the hammer is about to fall, in the Middle East is not going to be anything like it was. Israel is going to be forced to stop, and Israel is going to be forced to give up its weapons.
What?
They're going to be
Okay, wait.
forced
Okay,
to do that.
okay, so Israel's going to get Israel. In other words, the hammer is coming from outside. Israel's going to get hammered and forced to succumb.
They're going to be forced to stop. Yeah.
Is the United
And
States?
they're going to be, and when they're forced to stop, they're going to be forced to give up their weapons. And all of it will be forced. It's going to be forced.
Okay, do you see, let's say, Israel going through, finishing off Hamas, but do you see the United Nations, a peacekeeping force, maybe with some even American soldiers going in, creating a two-state solution and forcing this on Israel?
I can literally see Israel held hostage, but in a very different way. For example, suppose the Middle Eastern coalitions solidify their decision to stop Israel due to public outcry, anger, all the things that are
Right.
happening and building now. Well, they stop the war. It's going to be forced. And then they're going to go in and take Jerusalem by force, right?
Yeah.
As with the UN,
Yep.
with
Yep.
the Muslim nations, under the guidance of the Vatican. I see all that
I do
happening.
too. It's in the Bible,
I,
really.
I see that happening. They're going to take the weapons away from Israel this time. They have no choice. When Pastor, the what's happening right now has caused such anger that no one cares about justification anymore. And the message is causing a hatred that nothing else has been able to cause, and all that hatred is directed towards Israel. Now, unlike other times, we're not talking about governments. The governments of nations are telling their people to calm down. The people are angry. That's not happened before, not like this, not
No,
in
you're
these
right.
numbers.
No.
And so this time, it's not going to be enough for them to stop. When they stop them, they're going to have meetings. They're going to say, listen, we got to make sure they can never do this again. That
Yep.
will be the public outcry. We need to make sure Israel is not capable of doing this again. That will be the public outcry. And that will be that. That'll be that.
So, in other words, the United Nations is going to turn on Israel, including the United States at some point, maybe, if Biden remains in office during this 2024 year. I've been saying we've never seen a year like what's getting ready to happen. We don't have no idea what's
Oh,
about to happen globally and internally with America. We've not been here. I mean, it's possible what you're saying is Israel could get disarmed. It could be divided, forcibly parted, as it says in the book of Joel, and could be America could literally just like almost surrender to somebody. I mean,
yeah,
I hate to
we're
say,
gonna. I think we'll be tied up. We're gonna be just. We're so tied up right now. What can we do? What can we do?
can't do nothing.
Anybody makes a decision, there's a counter decision, right? By our own constitution, we just can't. Some side just can't stand up and start making decisions, and it has to go through through our system of democracy. So, what can we do? We have a stalemate in the White House.
Yeah.
We have elements in the White House that are, I mean, they are going to make sure that nothing happens. And people are going we're going to start feeling the pain here pretty soon from our own White House. I can almost guarantee you that pretty soon, nobody in America is going to care what's happening outside of America. How about that?
Because
That'll
things are going
sound
to
better.
collapse right here in this country.
Yep. Yep. They're going to fit, they're going to be, people are going to have to really get together and change Washington. And
Yeah,
that's not going to be pretty.
I don't
It's,
see
it's
that
just not going to
happening.
be pretty. It's not going to be pretty.
I mean, the last that just a simple protest on January 6th has created many people going to prison for a long time, and I don't see how there can be this massive change.
Well, guess, you know what? I don't think the Democrats, um, there's a different atmosphere with the people, Pastor Paul, the people. That number is 70, it was what? President Trump had less than half of the people in America, 70
Yeah,
million people, right?
yeah.
That wanted him, right? You want to know what that number jumped up to? That number's up.
I
It
mean,
is
he's way
up.
ahead, right? Is he way ahead in the polls right now?
Pastor, it jumped up so high, it's not even funny. So if we ever come under conservative leadership again, right,
Hmm.
then all the voices that are being disparaged right now are going to be right back out in front again. Retaliation against those who started all this prosecutory stuff in the first
Right.
place. They're going to retaliate against that. And then the people are going to be encouraged to change the rest of the aspects of government. So it's going to be government for the people. But in order to do that, there's a system that has to be fought. If and that will most certainly happen. There's a fracture straight down the line. You have police officers, right? Many of the police officers side with conservatives, just so
Yeah.
you know
Oh
that.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
And
definitely.
so there are a lot of people ready to make some,
So does the
do what's
military
necessary
side.
to make some
A lot of
changes.
the
That's
military
right.
sides are
That's
concerned.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
They're willing to do what's necessary to have those changes. Now, initially, people may not. This is something that seems like it's you can't avoid it. Everything keeps realigning itself to this massive change within America. And nobody likes change. Change does not come easy. We've had a long-standing system of fun, basically fun, but the world is getting serious and deadly. And so in those times you need leadership that can look at the horror story and still make command decisions based on you know based on convictions and things, because most people don't have the stomach for what's happening in the world right now. And
No, they can't.
it's going to take some hardened individuals in leadership to really make some decisions during this time. The people are going to begin to demand a change anyway. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
I hope they didn't forget about the food. Hope they didn't forget about uh, our infrastructure and things that are wearing down. It's going to be up to the people, especially when you have a handful of people that seem like they want to tear down America.
Yeah, we have them. But let's keep holding to the Lord. Let's keep praying. Let's keep standing strong, and let's keep believing. Let's keep our eyes on Jesus, no matter what happens, folks.
We have to.
Yeah,
Yes.
stay in the.
It's up to us. Hey, you know what? I still say it's up to us, Pastor. It's up to
It is.
Christians.
It really
Everybody's
is.
looking to civilian leadership, right? The answer is not with them, and it's never going to be with them because they have no spiritual defense
No,
against Satan.
it's up
They
to
have
us.
no defense against Satan. So
That's right.
that really is up to us. If we don't intercede, well,
It's over.
that's right. It's going to be all said and done. All said and
Mike,
done.
I tell you what, it's been a great broadcast. It's been some powerful information. It makes me go back and have to go listen to you again and find out what all you said and go do researching. And I'm not the only one. I think it's a lot of nearly 10,000 people out there tonight watching live. And so I want to appreciate and thank you. I want to thank you that we do appreciate what you bring forward here tonight. And we got to get people, they got to get right with God and they got to get their head on straight because this is troublesome times. Would you say that this is
Yes.
troublous, very troubling times?
It is, Pastor Paul. It's always an honor. Just to help anybody is an honor. It really is an honor, Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it too. I do.
Well, the honor's ours. We appreciate it. And what we're going to talk about next week, Mike?
Well, it looks like we'll be talking about these forced the surprises.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to be talking about these
Surprises. There's going to
surprises.
be some things
Yeah,
happen in the next 7 days.
yeah. I don't. Things are not going to stay on course. So everybody might want to get ready for the change they didn't know was coming.
All right. We'll we'll talk about it, Lord willing, next week. God bless, brother.
God bless you, Pastor
All
Paul.
right. Mike from the world, folks.